Over the years, I have worked with so many people to write their first memoir. And while I do see a lot of mistakes along the way, things like forgetting to include a structure or beating yourself up by comparing yourself to published books, I also want to talk about the number one error that I see in people's mindset as they move forward to their first book. And that is trying to rush the process. So today, I want to give a cheeky little video. I'm going to move through 10 reasons that you should avoid the urge to urgency. Stay tuned.
You've got the story, you've got the idea, you just don't know the steps in the process. If this is what's holding your memoir back, I have got the solution for you. The Memoir Method Checklist is going to take you through every single step you need from idea to published marketable book. And you can download it now at pageandpodium.com/checklist.
As I was figuring out what I wanted to share with y'all today, one of the things that kept coming up for me was a topic that we actually have not talked about on this podcast before, and that is the idea of rushing. But y'all, I have seen this so many times over the years. It does not seem to be something that is a trend. It seems to be a constant. So as I was thinking through all of the clients, all of the amazing authors that I have worked with who had this issue, who felt like they needed to rush, I just wanted to sit down for a bit and just take some time to think about what were all of the ways that this showed up to them as something that was actually sabotaging their progress. And I will say, across the board, when I have had these urgency conversations with authors, across the board, they end up realizing that they really were self-sabotaging by putting this massive amount of time pressure on themselves, by pushing through in urgency rather than enjoying the process. Now, one thing I do want to make really clear before we get going is that oftentimes I will see a contrast in the way we talk about process-driven books versus product-driven books. And I think this is exactly the wrong impulse. So what I mean by these two distinctions is that I find that some authors are process-driven. I myself have always been process-driven just because I enjoy the process of planning books. And when you are process-driven, you are in such a better place to give yourself leeway, give yourself grace, allow yourself to experiment and play. On the other side are the product-driven people. Now, to be clear, I have also been a product-driven person in some contexts. These are the contexts where we put so much pressure on ourselves to have an excellent finished product, but often also to have that excellent finished product by some date. So oftentimes I will see people set dates like their birthday, dates like anniversaries or other kind of family special days. Sometimes they'll have a New Year's Eve date or a summer break date or any number of random dates that we have set. But unfortunately, as you move through the process of trying to hit that product, very often what will happen is the product drive is actually the thing that undermines your ability to get the process done efficiently. In other words, trying to rush almost always backfires. And as I sat and thought about all of the ways that I have seen this, all of the things my clients have said to me as they have made this discovery through their own processes, I realized that I had quite a list. I've actually got 10 things here, which means we're going to have to move, ironically, pretty quickly through them. So without further ado, let me get into this because my goal in this video is to give you ways that you can short circuit that drive toward urgency when it comes up for you. And because this is going to look different for everybody, I just wanted to throw these all at you. Different ones will be helpful at different stages, but I hope that you can find something in here to put in your back pocket when you feel that urge, that sense that you're behind, that you need to hurry up, that you need to get your butt in seat and get it done. Pull one of these out. See if you can convince yourself that it is actually much, much more important that you are in the process, present fully as your whole self, than it is that you finish your book by an arbitrary date. Okay, so let's dig into it. The first thing that I have seen over my years of working with folks who are rushing is the creativity will eventually dry up. Now, I have talked before about the uncomfortable battle between productivity and creativity. And unfortunately, the more we allow ourselves to be in this mode of productivity, of getting the words on the page, of getting that book done, the less able we are to access our creativity. Now, if you're curious, you want to hear more about this, you can go back through this channel or head over to pageandpodium.com/blog, where you can see all of our back catalog. Each video has a blog that goes along with it, so you can search through and look for our video on productivity. But for now, suffice it to say, when we were in this headspace of productivity at all costs, we effectively pinch ourselves off from the free flow of creativity. Unfortunately, creativity does actually need to be nurtured. It needs room to groove. It needs freedom. It needs safety. And the more we punish ourselves for not moving fast enough, the less accessible that safety is, the less accessible the freedom is, the less accessible creativity is. What that means is that your project is going to get harder and harder and harder. And that brings me to the second thing I have observed in clients who are rushing is folks will often come to me at the end and say they realized that during the period they were rushing, they were actually slowing themselves down. Now, there are two ways that this can happen. The first is we are rushing. And if you have ever been in an extended period of either survival mode or something that felt like survival mode, you know exactly what's going to happen here. We're pushing, and eventually we're going to crash. Now, unfortunately, what happens so often is that when we get into this get it done mode, what we are doing is just marching ourselves toward a point where we're not going to be able to get anything done, where we are going to end up being required by our body and our brain to take a full break. Now, let me say, a break is nothing bad. In fact, we just ran a video a couple weeks ago about my own break on my memoir. So there is no shame in taking a break. But what I do not want you to do is be forced to take a break when otherwise you would have been booking along happily just because you were in a rush. So the first way that rushing can actually backfire and make your project take longer is it can end up burning you out, where you end up needing to take a break that you might not have needed to otherwise. But there's a second way this happens that is even darker than the first. And that is one thing that I have seen in so many ghostwriting clients, that they were trying to put time pressure on themselves, and eventually they could not even make themselves look at the document anymore. Truly, I know this sounds fear-mongery, but I can't tell you how many clients I have had in our ghostwriting program who had put a draft together. They had rushed. And then when they looked at it, they realized it was, number one, not very good. And number two, they did not have it in them to keep going. What very often happens at this point is folks will put that manuscript in a drawer. And I'll tell you, some of these folks I'm talking about, it was 5, even 10 years that they didn't look at that manuscript. Now, can I say if they hadn't rushed, that wouldn't have happened? I can't say that definitively. But I can tell you that this crash element is real. That ending up in a place where you cannot look at that project again is going to be a place that will be very, very hard to come back from. And if you are rushing, if you are thinking in urgency all the time, you are solidly on that path. So it's not too late. Pull back. There is no need for urgency. Enjoy the process, and everything will actually move much more efficiently, as unintuitive as I know that sounds. Okay, the third thing that you are missing out on if you are rushing is just the time and space it takes to solve writing problems. Now, we have talked in our Read Like a Writer series, that's just a few months back, about how when we move through the writing process, we are constantly learning. As we move through writing each new chapter, each new paragraph even, we are constantly being asked to make decisions. Now, one of the features of needing to do this is that as we move through, we get better and better and better at those decisions. But just like with any other cumulative process, as we get better and better at making those decisions, we also see more decisions. Now you can see, I think, where I'm going with this. If we are moving very, very quickly, what very often is happening is that we are actually needing to rush through spaces where we actually might need to stop a bit. We might need to contemplate, we might need to think about what is the best decision. But when we're rushing, we don't give ourselves that space. Now, what if instead, as you're moving through chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph, and giving yourself the space to learn and grow, things that are so integral to any good memoir process, what you are actually doing is allowing yourself to get better faster. So now, where in this first rushed example, we maybe moved chapters 1 through 6 in the space of a month, if what we really needed was for chapters 1 through 6 to take 12 weeks so that we had time to learn and grow along the way, well, if we compare those two chapter 6s, one's going to be a lot better than the other, right? So as you are moving through, it is really, really necessary that you take that writing time as an opportunity to learn and grow. When you're rushing yourself, you're just not giving yourself access to that. And that, unfortunately, is probably going to result in a less high quality book than you might have had otherwise. But also because you aren't making the space to really get good at making and spotting decisions, it's also probably going to take you a little longer. So that is the third reason. The fourth thing that I have heard from clients who have been in this rush mindset and then come out on the other end to see what was happening, I want to say it in the words of one of my former clients because I think she explained this so well. She said, you know that expression where when you think of quality, speed, and price, you can only have two? Well, OMG, is that ever true for the memoir process? Now, what had happened with this client is that she had written her whole book on her own. So she didn't engage with us until actually the first draft was finished. And one thing that she noted to me was that she wondered if she had slowed down, if a lot of the things that we needed to help her fix, that we needed to work with her on in editorial, might just not have even been a problem. And I think that is a fair assessment in this case and many cases. Unfortunately, if we are trying to get that speed, that quality, and that cost, we are probably not going to get all three. So remember, when you are trying to get two of them, you are either going to be sacrificing your quality or you are going to be sacrificing your money, because either you're going to end up with a lower quality draft that oftentimes first-time authors don't know how to fix, or you're going to be paying an editor or sometimes a ghostwriter high dollar to fix it for you. What if instead we slowed down, gave your brain time to adjust, gave you time to implement some of the writing advice that I see you consuming right now, and really give yourself the space to feel good in that world? Well, that's a different calculus, right? If we take the speed out, then we can do a lot of this ourselves, which I know not only saves you money, it gives you a more authentic sense of that book being yours, and we can achieve the quality. So again, we are slowing down to speed up, but this time we're also slowing down to achieve better quality and to save ourselves editorial money in the long term. The fifth thing that I have seen as I have moved through this process with so many coaching clients in particular is that oftentimes I've worked with folks who wanted to pay extra actually to have more than one coaching session a week. And what they were trying to do was knock out multiple chapters. So oftentimes we will suggest, if you really, you've got time to dedicate, we want you to think about a chapter a week or a chapter every 2 weeks. That typically is doable once you've slowed down and put together your outline. Now, again, just so I can mention really quick, in our Memoir Method group program, we walk you through this outline process. It is a step-by-step process. There are videos, there are tutorials, there are worksheets, brainstorming guides, everything you need to get that outline done. And once you've got the outline done, now we're just moving through the chapters. So oftentimes, a week or two per chapter is totally reasonable timeline. But sometimes I'll have people, again, who want to meet with me more than once a week. They want to be doing more than one chapter a week, 3 or 4 if they can, because again, they're trying to get done. Well, here is the thing that those folks miss out on compared to the folks that do 1 chapter a week, maybe a chapter every 2 weeks even, is that when you are living with the memoir, when you are writing it a little at a time, a little at a time, a little at a time, you are not completely abandoning that project between your writing periods. It's living with you. You are, in fact, living in it. You are living in this process of writing your book. And what that means is, as you're thinking about these events that you're writing about from your past, while encountering your current life, you are getting all kinds of new insights on what that event actually meant. So, when we rush, we really rob ourselves of the opportunity to sit in that book, live in that book, think about what those experiences mean, think about how we want to share our message. So in that way, this is sort of a backup from the last one because we are thinking about how slowing down can dramatically improve the quality of our work. When we slow down, we're able to make those connections that really make memoir special. So slowing down, living in the book is really going to be so helpful, but it is antithetical to rushing through the project. Okay, number 6. I actually should have probably mentioned this one earlier, but let's get it in here now. When we think about your book, every decision that you make for your book, the beginning and end is your reader experience. Now, as you are writing, we do encourage you to keep it in your own spirit. We will revise for things that would help the audience later. But as much as you can, the decisions that you are making through the book do need to reflect care for the reader. We know that you want to connect with them. And in fact, when you go through the process, realizing that you're going for this deep human connection, it shows in your finished book. And here I want to point out the opposite possibility, which is just as taking your time, making sure the quality is really solid is going to make for a better quality book, rushing, speeding up, having the only thing that matter be how quickly you're done is going to result in just as bad of a result as slowing down resulted in good. And let me put this a different way. You as a reader, if you were going to pick up a book and someone came to you and said, "Oh, that book, do you know that book was written in just a month and a half?" I don't know about you. I would maybe think twice about buying that book, right? I'm going to probably spend more than that amount of time to read it. So how did that person get it down? Instead, what I would love to hear is that author wanted it done sooner. Of course, we all do, but that they understood the value of slowing down, of contemplating, of really being clear with themselves and their reader. That is a book that is rooted in care. And that is the book that I want to read. Okay, next point, number 7. I want to get deep into our systems here because memoir is such a deeply human art form that we've got to think about how we react to it as humans, and not only readers, but also as writers ourselves. And the point I want to make here is anytime you feel this feeling of urgency, and often it will feel urgent, your body will feel urgent as though you are being propelled forward. You've got to do something. Sometimes this is sitting on the couch and feeling like, oh my gosh, I should be writing, I should be writing, I should be writing. Sometimes it is being at the keyboard and feeling like you have to finish before you can leave and you have to be at an appointment. It is a feeling of urgency. I must move. I must move now and quickly and surely and get out of there. Well, the reason I wanted to describe it that way is what is happening is quite literally a survival response in your body. Now, there is a lot of depth and nuance to this, but when we think of this survival response, most often we tend to call that something like fight or flight. We have also added things like freeze and fawn in recent years. We don't need to go that deep though. All we need to know is when we have that feeling of urgency, that is almost always connected to that survival response. That is almost always connected to a part of our body feeling unsafe. And I talk about this all the time, and I teased it earlier in this video. Writing your memoir requires that you find spaces of safety. It requires that you feel the freedom to engage, the freedom to express yourself, the freedom to really think deeply about vulnerable topics. When you are in this place of urgency, it will be exceedingly difficult for you to access anything that feels authentic in terms of creation. That doesn't mean you can't get words on the page. I will tell you, I spent years and years using that urgency survival response to write as fast as I could. And I'll tell you, that stuff, that is not my proudest stuff. I think it's probably perfectly fine, but it doesn't feel connected to me. It doesn't feel authentic to me. It's not stuff I would write again if I had it to do over. It's just simply not what we want from a memoir. So when you have that sense of urgency, I want you to pause for a second. I want you to think about, will this feel urgent if I sleep on it? Is this actually an emergency? Because one thing we like to say in my company is there aren't really any emergencies when it comes to books. It's not a hospital. So take the time, get calmed down, get settled, get safe, grab a cup of tea, wrap yourself in a shawl, make your body feel safe. The best writing you can do is going to come from that place, not the survival urgency place. All right, number 8. When you are in this rushing state, one thing that is almost inevitably going to happen is that you will come upon decisions, problems, challenges, things that you're not sure about, but you will not give yourself the time to really think through how to solve them. Now, in early chapters, I do actually find that authors can kind of muddle through like this if they try to. Oftentimes in the early chapters, we kind of have a sense of the shape of that chapter before we even get started. And that's typically the case for the first few chapters, at least if you've been carrying the memoir idea around with you for a while. But one thing that will happen as you move forward is you're just going to start to get tired. It happens to all of us. And as you get tired, if you stay in that rushing mindset, one thing that will almost always happen is you will start to do some hand waving. Now, all I mean by hand waving is that you are just like, you know what, put a pin in it, I'll decide later. But what happens when you write a whole book from that position is that, oh my goodness, you have set yourself up for despair when it comes to revisions. You will be with other people who are writing their book, who have gone through taking the time, taking the care, and they will have much, much less revision work than you will if you have done a lot of hand waving. And for that reason, slowing down, again, can really help you speed up. Because slowing down while you're in the chapter, slowing down to figure out what you should do next, that's going to take you much, much less time than if you have to come back to a chapter you wrote months ago to figure out what you meant, what you were trying to do, what the exact problem was. Oftentimes, if you can solve it in the moment, you can solve it pretty well and move forward. And if you don't, you very likely will need to even rewrite, if not the whole chapter, the section. So again, when we slow down, we allow ourselves efficiency. We give our book the care it needs. And in doing that, we are not only caring for ourselves in the moment of writing, we're caring for ourselves in the moment of revising. So this is the ultimate care for yourself and your book, because it's not just serving you now, it's also serving you down the line. Okay, our penultimate, number 9, reason not to rush your memoir is very often when rushing is the most important part, when getting done fast is the most important part, there are just too many temptations to cheat. So especially in this era of ChatGPT, it is really, really hard to resist the temptation. And when you feel behind, that goes triple, quadruple. So what I have seen is folks who really need the time, who want to take the time, but oftentimes are feeling really drawn to use some of these tools like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it may be, just to speed the process up, just to give themselves that boost, just to feel the momentum. But unfortunately, there are many, many problems with using AI. We have a whole video on this that you can go back to from mid last year, fall last year. But suffice it to say, for our purposes here, that type of cheating does not serve your process or your product. If you are in there doing work that you had not planned to use these tools for, just because you're in a hurry, 9 times out of 10, you're going to later regret that you did that. You're going to later wish that you had just taken the time that you needed. Not only, as I said before, because you are going to now have to revise this work that doesn't really feel connected to you, but also because you are probably going to have to rewrite substantial portions of it because it isn't really what you wanted to say. So if we can just reset our mindset, I find that most people are not tempted to use AI at all. But when the entire driving motion is getting the book done quickly, unfortunately, it's just really hard to resist. Okay, and the last tip number 10, when we are in this rushing state, we will very, very often resist the idea of feedback. Now, this can be any number of things. Sometimes we will resist feedback to a particular scene, which this can come in formal ways. For example, in our group program or in our one-on-one coaching, we will often work with folks to figure out what a chapter should look like. But it also can come informally when we're giving ourselves the time and the space to really live in that work. Oftentimes it's going to come up in our day-to-day conversations. We're going to get feedback just through people's opinions as we're talking through in our day-to-day lives. It can also look like not wanting to get feedback on your outline because you want to get going. This is something I see all the time. And it can also look like not getting feedback on, say, a sample chapter, not getting feedback on a portion that you're not sure about. Anytime you're going to get feedback, of course, it will require you to slow down, quite literally pause, while that person that's giving you feedback gives the feedback. If we are so focused on rushing, we miss out on all of these outside perspectives. And sure, some of them we're not going to help anyway, but some of them are gold. And when we are totally resistant to pausing or slowing down enough to get that type of feedback, we don't even know what we're missing. So, as we have moved through all of these 10 observations that I have seen in folks who are rushing their memoir, I hope that you have found at least 1 or 2 helpful counter arguments. We all have that voice in our head that says, go, 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 you're behind, you're behind, you're behind. But unfortunately, that voice is a liar. You are not behind. You are on the path to this memoir, and I know because you're sitting here watching this right now. So as you are moving forward, please be kind to yourself. Please remember that a good product almost always comes, at least in part, from a solid, care-focused process. And yes, you deserve both an excellent quality product and an excellent process experience. And you can have both. If we can help, head over to pageandpodium.com/contact. You can make an appointment to book a call directly with me, and we can talk about whether any of our programs would help you move forward at a pace that feels really good and allows you to do your best work. So head over there, make an appointment, and otherwise, happy writing.
You know what they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And this is exactly what holds so many people back on their memoir projects. That is exactly why we created the Memoir Method Checklist, a full, complete list of every single step you need to take to get that memoir written, published, and marketed successfully. You can download it now at pageandpodium.com/checklist.